Before we begin this story, I need you to ask yourself one question. Would you hide billions of dollars from the person you love most in the world? Would you build their entire empire in secret? Watch them take all the credit and never say a word? Eleanor Mitchell Stone did exactly that for 12 years. She was 22 when she inherited $3.8 billion. 22 when she met a broke architect with big dreams and no money. And 22 when she made a choice that would define the next decade of her life. She would fund his success anonymously. She would build his empire from the shadows. And she would wait to see if he loved her for who she was, not what she had. For 12 years, the world celebrated Marcus Stone as a self-made billionaire. For 12 years, Eleanor played the quiet wife, invisible in her own life. For 12 years, nobody knew the truth. Until the night he kissed his mistress in front of 600 people and 1,000 cameras. What happened next? Well, that's when the quiet wife became the most powerful woman in Manhattan. That's when 12 years of silence turned into the most spectacular revenge in corporate history. That's when Eleanor Mitchell Stone stopped hiding and started taking back everything that was always hers. This is a story about secrets and betrayal, about power and revenge, about a woman who built an empire in silence and reclaimed it in front of the world, about the price we pay for hiding who we really are. And trust me, you won't believe how this ends. So settle in, because this is the true story of the silent billionaire who made her cheating husband regret the day he ever underestimated her. Let's begin. The camera flashes that night would capture more than a photograph. They would capture the exact moment a marriage died. Eleanor Mitchell Stone sat in the front row of the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom, surrounded by 600 of New York City's most powerful people. Her emerald Valentino gown cost $18,000, though Marcus had chosen it without asking her opinion. Her hair was pulled back into a tight ballerina bun that gave her a slight headache. Marcus preferred it that way. Classic, he called it. Controlled, she thought. The diamond earrings at her ears were an anniversary gift, purchased with money from their joint account. Money she had deposited, money he thought was his. Eleanor watched her husband take the stage to thunderous applause. Marcus Stone at 42 was everything a billionaire real estate developer should be. Tall, commanding, with dark hair graying at the temples and piercing blue eyes that could charm investors or intimidate competitors. He wore confidence like his custom Tom Ford tuxedo, perfectly tailored and impossible to ignore. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus's voice boomed through the ballroom, amplified by the microphone but barely needing it. "Tonight we celebrate not just success, but responsibility. Stone Empire Group is proud to announce the Stone Foundation, a $500 million commitment to New York City's youth programs." Eleanor's hands rested in her lap, perfectly still. She had suggested this foundation 3 years ago. Marcus had called it sentimental nonsense. Now here he was, announcing it as his vision. "This company was built from nothing," Marcus continued, his voice swelling with emotion that Eleanor knew was calculated. "From a drafting table in a studio apartment in Brooklyn. From a dream and relentless vision. I was sleeping in my office, surviving on coffee and determination, when I got my first break." Eleanor felt something twist in her chest. She remembered that studio apartment. She remembered bringing him coffee, listening to his dreams. She remembered making a phone call that changed everything, though he would never know it. "But no empire is built alone," Marcus said, and Eleanor's attention snapped back. "You need people who share that vision, people who push you to be greater, people who inspire you to reach higher." He paused, and Eleanor felt Diane Harper's hand squeeze hers under the table. Her best friend since Harvard, Diane was an attorney now, fierce and protective. She sat to Eleanor's left, tension radiating from her body. "Join me in welcoming someone very special," Marcus said, his voice dropping to something intimate, almost tender. "Vanessa Blake." The spotlight swung to the side of the stage. Vanessa Blake emerged like she was born for this moment. 26 years old, platinum blonde, her body poured into a crimson Versace gown with a thigh-high slit and a back that plunged to her waist. She had been Miss Texas at 21, got her MBA from USC, and had 200,000 Instagram followers who watched her every move. She glided across the stage with practiced grace, her smile dazzling. Vanessa has been instrumental in reshaping Stone Empire's future, Marcus said, his eyes never leaving her. She's not just my brand director. She's my inspiration. She's shown me what it means to dream bigger, to push harder, to never settle. Eleanor stopped breathing. She represents everything this foundation stands for. Youth, energy, possibility. Marcus took Vanessa's face in both hands. The ballroom went completely silent, and then he kissed her. Not a polite peck, not a professional gesture, a deep, possessive, intimate kiss that lasted 8 full seconds. His hands cradled her face. Her arms slid around his neck. The kiss was the kind you give someone you love, someone you desire, someone you choose. The photographers erupted. Flashes exploded like lightning, rapid-fire bursts of white light that froze the moment in crystalline clarity. The sound of camera shutters was deafening, a mechanical roar that drowned out the collective gasp rippling through the ballroom. Eleanor sat perfectly still. Her face remained a composed mask, the society smile she had perfected over 12 years. But her hands, hidden beneath the table, gripped the linen napkins so hard the fabric tore. "Eleanor," Diane whispered urgently. "Eleanor, we need to go." Patricia Vanderbilt, the society queen seated 2 chairs over, whispered loudly enough to be heard. "Well, that's certainly bold." Someone at the next table giggled nervously. Someone else coughed. The whispers started spreading like wildfire. On stage, Marcus finally broke the kiss. He kept his arm around Vanessa's waist, pulling her against his side, presenting her to the crowd like a trophy. "Ladies and gentlemen, the future of the Stone Foundation and the future of Stone Empire." The applause was scattered, confused, shocked. Eleanor stood. She didn't make a scene. She didn't throw her wine glass or shout accusations. She simply stood, her movements precise and deliberate. She picked up her clutch. She placed the torn napkin beside her plate with surgical precision. "Eleanor," Marcus called from the stage, finally noticing. His voice carried over the microphone. "Eleanor, where are you going? Don't be dramatic." She didn't answer. She didn't look at him. She turned her back on the stage, on her husband, on the woman he had just kissed in front of 600 people. And she walked. Her posture was perfect, her steps measured. She walked through the whispering crowd, past shocked faces and pitying stares, past Julian Vane, the banking heir who looked bewildered, past colleagues who averted their eyes. "Eleanor," Marcus's voice again, tinged with annoyance now. "Eleanor, this is ridiculous." She pushed through the grand ballroom doors. They closed behind her with a soft, final click that sounded like the end of everything. In the hallway, the cool air hit her face. Her hands started shaking, her vision blurred, but she kept walking, her heels clicking against the marble floor until she reached the hotel elevator. Only when the elevator doors closed and she was alone did Eleanor Mitchell Stone let herself feel it. The humiliation, the rage, the devastating, crushing weight of 12 years of lies. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands, found a number she hadn't called in 8 years. "Mom?" Her voice cracked. "Mom, you were right about everything." 48 hours earlier, everything had been different. Eleanor had known something was wrong for 6 months, since the day Marcus hired Vanessa Blake. But knowing and facing the truth were 2 different things. The story of how Eleanor Mitchell became Eleanor Stone was a story of love and secrets. It was also a story of $3.8 billion that nobody knew existed. 12 years ago, Eleanor Mitchell was 22 years old, studying art history at Harvard when her father died. Arthur Mitchell, owner of Mitchell Steel Corporation, had built his empire quietly. Northern industrial money, not flashy like the Vanderbilts or loud like the new tech fortunes. Mitchell Steel made the steel that built skyscrapers, the components that powered cities. Arthur Mitchell had despised flash and showmanship. "The loudest man in the room is always the weakest," he told Eleanor the day before he died. "True power doesn't announce itself." He died of a brain aneurysm at 58, leaving his daughter a fortune so vast it terrified her. 6 months later, still grieving and lost, Eleanor met Marcus Stone in a coffee shop near MIT. He was 30, struggling to make it as an architect, carrying blueprints and dreams in equal measure. When he spilled coffee on her book, he didn't see a billionaire heiress. He saw Ellie Mitchell, library assistant, wearing thrift store clothes and riding the bus. She fell in love with his passion. He fell in love with who he thought she was. Eleanor made a choice then that would define the next 12 years. Working with her father's attorney, Alistair Brooks, and his best friend, Thomas Garrett, she created Titan Capital Holdings, a private equity firm registered in the Cayman Islands. Untraceable, anonymous, controlled entirely by her. When Marcus got his first investment, $2 million for 65% equity in his fledgling firm, he thought it came from a European venture capital group. It came from Eleanor. Every dollar after that came from Eleanor. The land purchases, the construction loans, the payroll during lean years. $2.4 billion over 12 years. She built his empire. He thought he had built it himself. She did it for love. She wanted him to love her, not her money. She wanted to be his partner, not his benefactor. For the first few years, it worked. They were happy. Marcus was brilliant. His architectural designs genuinely innovative. Eleanor played the quiet wife, attending dinners and charity events, smiling and nodding while Marcus held court. But success changed him. Or maybe it revealed who he always was. He started believing his own press, the Forbes articles calling him a self-made titan, the magazine covers, the speaking engagements. He forgot the struggling architect sleeping in his office. He started seeing Eleanor as a relic of his humble past, something to be upgraded. 6 months ago, he hired Vanessa Blake. She's exactly what we need, Marcus announced that night, bursting into their Tribeca penthouse. Former Miss Texas, MBA, social media savvy, she's going to revolutionize our brand. Eleanor, cooking dinner in their state-of-the-art kitchen, felt something cold settle in her stomach. That's wonderful. I want you to meet her. Company dinner Friday? Friday night at Le Bernardin, Eleanor met the woman who would destroy her marriage. Vanessa was beautiful in an obvious way, all platinum hair and white teeth, in a dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. But it wasn't her beauty that frightened Eleanor. It was the calculation in her eyes and the way her hand rested on Marcus's arm. Mrs. Stone, Vanessa gushed, Marcus has told me so much about you. You must be so proud watching him build this empire from scratch. From scratch. The words hit like a slap. Eleanor prefers to stay out of the business side, Marcus said dismissively, not even looking at his wife. Vanessa's smile sharpened. That's so sweet. Not every woman can handle the pressure of what Marcus does. Eleanor excused herself to the bathroom and texted Diane. She's touching him. In front of me. Diane's response was immediate. Get out now. This is how it starts. But Eleanor didn't leave. She couldn't prove anything. And part of her, the part that had loved him for 12 years, couldn't believe he would actually do this. The next 6 months were a slow torture. In February, at the company party, Marcus introduced Vanessa to investors as the brains behind our new direction, while Eleanor stood 10 feet away holding champagne nobody would drink. In March, Forbes put Marcus on the cover. Marcus Stone, the self-made titan who built an empire on grit. The article mentioned Elginor once. Stone lives in a Tribeca penthouse with his wife Eleanor, a private person who prefers to stay out of the spotlight. Vanessa was quoted 5 times. In April, Marcus's mother visited from Chicago. When are you giving me grandchildren? Judith Stone demanded. Eleanor's 34. Clock's ticking. My focus is the company right now, Marcus said coldly, barely looking at Eleanor. That night, Eleanor cried alone in the bathroom while Diane stayed on the phone with her for 2 hours. In May, Marcus and Vanessa flew to Miami for investor meetings. Eleanor saw paparazzi photos of them at South Beach, his arm around her waist. When he came home Sunday night, there was lipstick on his collar. How was Miami? Eleanor asked. Productive. I'm exhausted. Don't wait up. In June, Thomas Garrett pulled Eleanor aside at her private club, a membership Marcus didn't know she had. Eleanor, we need to talk about Marcus. Thomas was 65, silver-haired, distinguished. Her father's best friend and the secret representative of Titan Capital on Stone Empire's board. I know about the affair, Eleanor said quietly. It's worse than that. Thomas slid a folder across the table. The Hudson Yards project is $800 million over budget. Marcus is cooking the books, falsifying reports to hide the losses, and he's transferred $5 million to an offshore account in Vanessa Blake's name. Eleanor's world tilted. Infidelity was one thing. Fraud and embezzlement were something else entirely. 2 weeks before the gala, Eleanor found the hotel receipt in Marcus's suit pocket while doing laundry. The Mark Hotel, penthouse suite, $15,000 for one night. The same night he said he was working late at the office. She sat on the bathroom floor, unable to breathe, clutching the receipt like evidence of a crime, which it was. She called her mother for the first time in 8 years. They had been estranged since Catherine Mitchell refused to attend Eleanor's wedding, insisting Marcus was too hungry, too ambitious, too dangerous. "Mom?" Eleanor's voice broke. "Mom, you were right about everything." "Oh, sweetheart," Catherine breathed. "I'm so sorry. I wasted 12 years. I destroyed our relationship for him. You didn't waste anything. You invested. Now it's time to collect what you're owed." Eleanor made the call to Alistair Brooks that night. "Start preparing the files, all of them." The nuclear option? Scorched earth. Now, standing in that hotel elevator, her marriage publicly destroyed, Eleanor felt something she hadn't felt in 12 years. Freedom. Eleanor woke up Sunday morning in a suite at the Plaza Hotel still wearing her emerald gown. She hadn't slept. The newspapers spread across her bed told the story in brutal clarity. "Stone cold, billionaire kisses mistress at charity gala," screamed the Daily News. "The kiss of death, Mrs. Stone walks out on cheating husband," announced the New York Post with a photo of the kiss taking up the entire front page. Vanity Fair's website ran with "The Silent Mrs. Stone Speaks Volumes with Exit," accompanied by a photo essay. Eleanor walking out, her face a perfect mask. Marcus looking confused, then angry. Vanessa smirking. Eleanor's phone showed 347 missed calls. She played the voicemail from Marcus. "Eleanor, what the hell was that? You embarrassed me in front of 600 people. Get back to the penthouse now. We need to discuss your little tantrum like adults." Her little tantrum, as if she was the problem. Patricia Vanderbilt's message was more sympathetic. "Eleanor, darling, call me." That took courage. Or whine. Either way, call me. Marcus's mother was predictably on her son's side. "Eleanor, I don't know what's happening, but walking out like that was very dramatic. Marcus says you've been stressed. Perhaps you should see someone." At 9 a.m., Diane Harper arrived with coffee and bagels. At 9:15, Alistair Brooks arrived with 3 briefcases full of documents. At 9:30, Thomas Garrett joined via secure video call from London. "Gentlemen, Diane." Eleanor's voice was calm, cold, controlled. "Thank you for coming. We have 24 hours to prepare for war." Alistair opened the first briefcase. "The emergency board meeting is scheduled for Monday, 9 a.m. All members have been notified." "Does Marcus know?" "He knows about the meeting. He thinks it's routine quarterly review." Thomas appeared on the laptop screen, his distinguished face grave. "Eleanor, once you do this, there's no going back. He'll know everything." "Good. I'm done hiding." They spent the next 3 hours laying out the evidence. Hudson Yards project, $800 million over budget with falsified reports. $5 million transferred to Vanessa Blake's offshore account. $3 million in marketing expenses that purchased jewelry, cars, and a Park Avenue penthouse for Marcus's mistress. "This is enough to remove him and press criminal charges," Diane said. "What about the prenup?" Eleanor asked. Alistair pulled out the document Marcus had insisted on signing 10 years ago. "The prenup states assets acquired during marriage are split 50-50. Marcus will argue Stone Empire was built during your marriage, therefore he's entitled to half its value. In our counter, Stone Empire was built with your premarital assets funneled through Titan Capital. You contributed capital, he contributed labor. Per the prenup, you retain your capital." Eleanor smiled for the first time since the gala. "He signed a prenup to protect himself from me. Instead, he protected me from himself." At 2 p.m., Diane returned with news. "I filed for emergency restraining order. Judge approved it. Marcus cannot contact you, come within 500 feet, or access joint accounts until the hearing Wednesday." Eleanor exhaled. "We're winning." 2 hours later, her phone rang. Alistair's voice was tight with tension. "We have a problem. Marcus just held a press conference." Eleanor turned on the television to see her husband standing outside Stone Empire Tower, surrounded by microphones. "I want to address the rumors from last night," Marcus said, looking every inch the wounded husband. "My wife Eleanor is struggling. She's been under enormous stress. I should have seen the signs. Last night she had an episode, a breakdown. I'm heartbroken that our private pain is now public. But I want everyone to know I love my wife. I'm committed to getting her help. A reporter shouted, Mr. Stone, what about the kiss with Vanessa Blake? Vanessa is a valued colleague and friend. That moment was misinterpreted. In my culture, we're affectionate. It was a celebration of the foundation launch. Nothing more. The fact that Eleanor perceived it as something else shows how unwell she's been. Eleanor felt rage burning through her veins. Is it true she walked out? Yes, and it broke my heart. But I'm not angry, I'm concerned. I'm asking for privacy as we navigate this difficult time as a family. He was good, he was very good. Concerned husband, unwell wife. He was flipping the entire narrative. Diane's face was grim. He's isolating you, making you look unstable. Eleanor's phone started flooding with texts. Marcus's mother insisting she get help. Patricia Vanderbilt asking if she was all right. Former friends offering support tinged with pity. Thomas called from London. It's worse. 3 board members just contacted me. They're concerned about tomorrow's meeting. They think this is Eleanor having a breakdown. Not legitimate business concerns. Eleanor sat on the hotel bed, feeling the weight of it crushing her. What if he's right? What if I look like the crazy, jealous wife accusing her successful husband because I can't handle his affair? Diane grabbed her shoulders, forcing Eleanor to look at her. You are not crazy. You are a billionaire who has been secretly funding his empire for 12 years. Tomorrow you prove it. At 7 p.m., Alistair's phone rang. His face went white. No, that's impossible. What? Eleanor demanded. My office was broken into. The backup files on Marcus's fraud, they're gone. What about digital copies? Thomas's voice came through the laptop, strained. Eleanor, the Titan Capital's secure server was hacked 2 hours ago. All files on Stone Empire transactions have been deleted. Diane stood abruptly. How is that possible? That's military-grade encryption. Marcus hired someone, Thomas said grimly. Someone very good. Eleanor felt paranoia creeping in. Who knew about tomorrow's meeting? Only us, Alistair said, and the board members. So Marcus has someone on the inside. Someone in this room or on that board. They all looked at each other. Trust suddenly a fragile thing. Do we have any evidence left? Eleanor asked. Thomas nodded. I have one backup. Physical copies in a safe in London. I can scan and email them, but it'll take 6 hours. You won't have them until 3 a.m. The meeting's at 9, Alistair calculated. That gives us 6 hours to prepare. Diane paced. The bank records are public record. We can subpoena them. That takes weeks. Then we bluff. We walk in and tell them what we know. Force Marcus to deny it. Produce evidence later. That's incredibly risky, Eleanor said. It's all we have. At 10 p.m., Eleanor made a decision that would prove to be a mistake. She needed clothes for tomorrow's meeting. Her power suits were at the penthouse. I'm going home, she announced. Absolutely not, Diane protested. Marcus could be there. He won't violate the restraining order. He's too smart for that. She was wrong. The Tribeca penthouse was dark when Eleanor unlocked the door at 10:30 p.m. She flipped the light switch. Hello, Eleanor. Marcus sat in the living room drinking scotch, waiting. Eleanor froze. You're violating the restraining order. Restraining order? Marcus stood, moving toward her with predatory grace. Please, I own the judge who signed it. I own this city. You need to leave. I think we need to talk. He circled her slowly. See, I know what you're planning tomorrow. The board meeting, the big reveal. Her blood ran cold. How did you... You think I don't have eyes everywhere? You think I don't know you've been digging into my business? Eleanor, you were always so naive. Get out of my apartment. Your apartment? Marcus laughed. Everything here is mine. The furniture, the art, even that dress you're wearing. I paid for all of it. Eleanor thought of the money in the joint account. Money she had deposited. You didn't pay for anything. Here's what's going to happen tomorrow, Marcus continued as if she hadn't spoken. You're going to withdraw your complaints. You're going to smile at that meeting and confirm I have your full support, and then we're going to have a very long talk about your behavior. Or what? His face hardened. Or I destroy you. I go nuclear. I tell the world my wife is a paranoid, delusional woman who's been stalking me, who's been making up conspiracies because she can't handle that I've outgrown her. I have therapists ready to testify you're unstable. I have friends ready to say you've been acting erratic for months. You're lying. How do you think it'll look? The quiet, mousy wife suddenly accusing her successful husband of fraud after she walked out on him at a charity gala. Who do you think they'll believe? The self-made billionaire or the woman having a public breakdown? Eleanor's voice shook. I have evidence. Had, past tense. Marcus's smile was cruel. Do you really think I'd let you keep it? Her stomach dropped. What's it going to be, Eleanor? Peace or mutually assured destruction? This was her second peak of despair. The evidence was gone. Marcus had anticipated everything. She might actually lose. Or option 3, Diane's voice came from the bedroom doorway. We press charges for breaking and entering, violating a restraining order, and threatening a witness. Marcus spun. You have no right to be here. Eleanor invited me. This is her apartment. You're trespassing. Rage twisted Marcus's features. You think you're so clever, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. He grabbed Eleanor's wrist, hard enough to hurt. Get your hands off her, Diane said, stepping forward. Now! Marcus released her but leaned close, whispering in Eleanor's ear. This isn't over. Tomorrow I'm going to destroy you. He left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Eleanor collapsed into a chair, shaking uncontrollably. Diane immediately photographed the red marks on Eleanor's wrist. That's assault. We're adding it to the file. Eleanor's voice broke. Diane, what if I lose? What if the board believes him? What if I'm just the crazy wife who couldn't handle her husband's success? Then we go to the press, the SEC, the FBI. We don't stop until he's in prison. But what if... No, Diane knelt in front of her. Listen to me, your father built Mitchell Steel from nothing. He didn't quit when things got hard. Neither will you. Tomorrow we walk into that boardroom and we end this. Eleanor looked at the bruises forming on her wrist. Tomorrow we end this. But neither of them knew just how much worse it would get first. At 3 a.m., Thomas's email arrived. Scanned documents, hundreds of pages. Proof of fraud, proof of embezzlement, proof of everything Marcus had done. Eleanor, Diane, and Alistair worked through the night preparing the presentation. By 8 a.m., Eleanor was dressed in a charcoal gray power suit, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked in the mirror and saw her father. You look like a woman about to take back her empire, Diane said. At 8:30, their black SUV pulled up to Stone Empire Tower. Paparazzi swarmed immediately. Marcus had tipped them off. Mrs. Stone, is it true you're having a breakdown? Eleanor, are you divorcing Marcus? Is it true you had an affair with Thomas Garrett? That last one made Eleanor stop. She turned to the cameras and Diane hissed, don't engage. But Eleanor had had enough of hiding. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, her voice clear and strong, my name is Eleanor Mitchell Stone. Today, the Stone Empire Board will vote on the future of this company. I look forward to sharing the truth with you afterwards. Thank you. Composed, calm, powerful. The photographers went insane. The boardroom on the 42nd floor was a cathedral of glass and steel overlooking Manhattan. Eleanor had been here dozens of times for company parties, always standing in the corner with a drink, watching Marcus hold court. Today, she walked in like she owned it, which she did. 7 board members sat around the polished table. Marcus sat at the head, confident and smirking. His attorney, Richard Blake, sat beside him. Eleanor noted with interest that Richard Blake shared a last name with Vanessa. She filed that information away. Thomas Garrett sat at the opposite end, calm and distinguished. Alistair Brooks took a seat beside Eleanor. Diane stood behind her like a warrior. The other board members looked nervous. Susan Wright, a venture capitalist. James Crawford, a real estate attorney. Patricia Vanderbilt, who Eleanor hadn't known was on the board. 3 others Eleanor recognized from charity events. This emergency session of the Stone Empire Group Board of Directors is now in session, Thomas announced. The agenda, review of financial irregularities, and a vote on CEO Marcus Stone's leadership. Marcus interrupted immediately. Before we begin this witch hunt, I want to address the elephant in the room. My wife Eleanor has been unwell. She's made serious, unfounded accusations against me because she's having a breakdown. Mr. Stone, Thomas said coolly, you'll have your turn to speak. This is my company. No, Mr. Stone, this is a corporation with fiduciary duties to its shareholders. Please sit down. Marcus sat, but fury radiated from him. Thomas began the presentation. Hudson Yards project, budgeted at $1.2 billion. Current costs, $2 billion. $800 million overrun. Board members murmured. Large projects always run over, Marcus interjected. That's normal. Not when you falsify reports to the board. Thomas pulled up contractor invoices on the screen. Here are the actual costs versus what you reported. Notice the discrepancy? Susan Wright leaned forward. Marcus, is this true? Those numbers are taken out of context. Furthermore, Thomas continued, $5 million was transferred from company accounts to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Account holder, Vanessa Blake. Gasps echoed around the table. That was a signing bonus. Marcus was sweating now. She deserved a $5 million signing bonus for a brand director position? When our CFO makes $800,000 annually? Marcus had no answer. An additional $3 million in company funds purchased a penthouse apartment on Park Avenue, a Mercedes G-Wagon, and jewelry from Cartier. All classified as marketing expenses. The board members looked sick. Marcus stood abruptly. This is a setup. Eleanor has been planning this. She's trying to steal my company. Eleanor spoke for the first time, her voice quiet but cutting. Your company, Marcus? I built this. From nothing. Did you? Yes. I was sleeping in my office when I started. I had $3,000 to my name. And how did you get your first investment? Your first $2 million? Titan Capital, a European venture capital firm, believed in my vision. Eleanor stood slowly. And who do you think Titan Capital is? The room went completely silent. Alistair stood and began distributing documents to every board member. Thick packets bound with the Titan Capital logo. Eleanor walked slowly around the table, her voice steady. My name is Eleanor Ann Mitchell Stone. Confused looks. Mitchell, as in Mitchell Steel Corporation. Recognition began dawning on faces. Susan Wright's eyes went wide. James Crawford sat back heavily in his chair. My father was Arthur Mitchell. When he died 12 years ago, I inherited Mitchell Steel and $3.8 billion. Marcus's face was draining of color. That fortune was invested through a private equity firm I created, Titan Capital Holdings. Registered in the Cayman Islands 12 years ago, sole director and beneficiary, me. She placed a document in front of Marcus. Articles of incorporation. Filed 6 months before I met you, Marcus. His hand shook as he read it. Titan Capital made its first investment in a young architect named Marcus Stone. $2 million for 65% equity. No, Marcus whispered. Over the next decade, Titan Capital invested $2.4 billion into Stone Empire. Land acquisitions, construction costs, payroll during lean years, marketing budgets. Every building you think you built, I bought the land. Every loan you think you secured, I guaranteed it. Eleanor removed her wedding ring and placed it on the table. Stone Empire Group was never yours, Marcus. It was always mine. Marcus exploded. You lied to me for 12 years. I protected you. I funded your dreams. I believed in your vision. You manipulated me. Eleanor's voice cracked slightly, the only show of emotion. No, I loved you. I wanted you to love me, Eleanor. The woman who brought you coffee while you worked late. The woman who listened to your dreams at 2 a.m. Not Eleanor Mitchell, the heiress. She composed herself. I gave you everything anonymously because I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew about the money, you'd love the money instead of me. Her voice hardened. Turns out I was right. Alistair stepped forward with more documents. Ladies and gentlemen, you have before you proof of Titan Capital's ownership, 65% voting shares, proof of Marcus Stone's fraud, falsified financial reports, proof of embezzlement, $8 million transferred to personal accounts. Proof of breach of fiduciary duty. Using company assets for his mistress. He placed a final document on the table. Restraining order violation from last night. Marcus Stone entered Eleanor's residence and physically assaulted her. He showed photos of the bruises on Eleanor's wrist. James Crawford looked at Marcus. Is any of this untrue? Marcus couldn't speak. Susan Wright's voice was cold. Did you really steal $8 million? I didn't steal anything. I built this company. Eleanor's voice cut through his protests like a blade. You built nothing. You were a talented architect with big dreams and no capital. I was the capital. You were the blueprint. I was the steel. This is insane. Mr. Stone, sit down, Thomas said. I will not. Security, please escort Mr. Stone out of this building. 2 security guards entered. Marcus's final breakdown was spectacular. No, this is my company. Mine. We're working 80-hour weeks. I sacrificed everything. You sacrificed nothing, Eleanor said quietly. You risked my money. You spent my capital. And when that wasn't enough, you humiliated me in front of 600 people and crowned your mistress. Marcus lunged toward her, but security grabbed him. You bitch! You set me up! You let me believe... Eleanor stepped close enough to whisper so only he could hear. I didn't set you up, Marcus. I set you free to show me exactly who you were. And you did. To the guards, remove him from my building. He was dragged out, screaming promises of lawsuits and revenge. His voice faded down the hallway. The boardroom was silent. Thomas Garrett cleared his throat. The motion before the board: remove Marcus Stone as CEO, effective immediately, for cause. Termination for cause results in forfeiture of his 35% shares per his employment contract. Susan Wright looked up from the documents. He owns nothing? Alistair nodded. His shares were a gift from Titan Capital, contingent on employment. Termination for cause revokes them. So he walks away with nothing? James Crawford asked. Per the prenup he insisted upon, assets acquired before marriage remain separate. Eleanor's $3.8 billion is hers. Assets acquired during marriage are split 50-50, but since Stone Empire was built with her premarital assets, he has no claim. Patricia Vanderbilt spoke for the first time. Can I just say that was the most impressive thing I've ever witnessed? Eleanor, I'm sorry I underestimated you. All in favor of removing Marcus Stone as CEO? Thomas asked. Every hand went up, unanimous. The motion carries. Marcus Stone is removed. The position of CEO is vacant. Nominations? Patricia didn't hesitate. I nominate Eleanor Mitchell Stone as CEO and permanent chairwoman of the board. Second, James said immediately. All in favor? Every hand rose again. Thomas smiled. Congratulations, Madam Chairman. Eleanor looked out at the Manhattan skyline, at the city her father had helped build, at the empire she had created in secret. Thank you. Now, let's get to work fixing the damage. The board spent the next 2 hours reviewing the Hudson Yards disaster, making plans to restructure, discussing how to handle the press. Eleanor was calm, competent, brilliant. These men and women who had dismissed her for years watched her command the room with quiet authority. Finally, at 11 a.m., Eleanor stepped outside Stone Empire Tower to face the press. Paparazzi swarmed, but this time Eleanor was ready. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Today, the Stone Empire Board voted unanimously to remove Marcus Stone as CEO due to financial fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. I have been appointed CEO and chairwoman. Mrs. Stone, is it true you're the real owner? My investment firm, Titan Capital Holdings, owns 65% of Stone Empire. It always has. Why keep it secret? Eleanor paused, allowing herself to be vulnerable. Because 12 years ago, I met a man I thought I loved. I wanted him to love me for who I was, not what I had. I made the mistake of hiding my success to protect his ego. I won't make that mistake again. What about Vanessa Blake? Miss Blake's employment has been terminated. The penthouse purchased with company funds has been reclaimed. I wish her well in her future endeavors. Will you press charges against Marcus? The Manhattan District Attorney's Office is reviewing the evidence. That decision is theirs. Eleanor walked to her waiting car, dignified and powerful. As the door closed, she finally allowed herself to breathe. Diane squeezed her hand. You did it. Eleanor looked at the bruises on her wrist, at the city she now controlled, at the future spreading before her. No, she said quietly. We did it. For 3 days, Eleanor was brilliant. She restructured the Hudson Yards project, brought in new management, held meetings with investors. The press was obsessed. Forbes wanted an interview. The Wall Street Journal called her the most interesting woman in New York. On Thursday afternoon, working in her new office, Eleanor felt dizzy. The room tilted. She grabbed her desk, but her legs wouldn't hold her. She collapsed. When Eleanor woke in Mount Sinai Medical Center, Diane was beside her, looking worried. What happened? You fainted at work. Eleanor, when's the last time you slept? I'm fine. I need to get back. Dr. Sarah Reynolds entered, mid-40s with kind eyes. Mrs. Stone, you're fine, but we need to discuss something. What? Reynolds smiled. You're pregnant, about 8 weeks. The world stopped spinning. Eleanor's hand went to her stomach. I'm what? Congratulations. You and your baby are perfectly healthy, but you need to reduce stress. No more 16-hour workdays. Diane was crying and laughing simultaneously. Oh my God, Eleanor. Eleanor stared at the ceiling, processing. 8 weeks. That meant conception happened before the gala, before everything fell apart, when she still believed her marriage might survive. I'm pregnant, she whispered, with his child. Diane grabbed her hand fiercely. No, with your child, your baby, and we're going to raise them to be strong and brilliant and nothing like their father. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, the first real tears she'd allowed since the gala. My mom, I need to call my mom. Catherine Mitchell arrived within 2 hours, rushing into the hospital room. Eleanor. They embraced for the first time in 8 years. Mom, I'm so sorry. You were right about him. Shh, I don't care about being right. I care about you. I'm pregnant, Mom. Catherine pulled back, complex emotions crossing her face. Then she smiled. Then we have work to do. You're going to need help. And I'm not missing another moment of your life. Eleanor broke down completely. I wasted so much time. No, Catherine held her daughter. You invested time, you learned, you grew, and now you're going to build something beautiful. A company, a family, a life that's truly yours. That night, alone in her hospital room, Eleanor placed her hand on her stomach. 8 weeks. A tiny cluster of cells that would become a person. Marcus's child. Her child. The phone rang. Diane's number. The DA called. Marcus's sentencing is Monday. They're projecting 7 to 10 years. That's fast. He took a plea deal, probably hoping for leniency. Eleanor absorbed this. I won't attend. He asked to speak to you one last time, says it's urgent, about the baby. Eleanor's hand tightened on her stomach. How does he know? His mother visited him. She knows somehow. Eleanor made a decision she would question later. Set it up, but I need to close this chapter. For good. Manhattan Criminal Court on Monday morning was cold and impersonal. Eleanor sat in a private conference room waiting. She wore a simple black dress, no jewelry. Her hand kept drifting to her stomach, still flat, hiding the secret growing inside. The door opened. Guards brought Marcus in. He looked terrible. Orange jumpsuit hanging on a frame that had lost 20 pounds. Hollow eyes, hands cuffed. You have 5 minutes, the guard said. Marcus sat across from her. Ellie, don't. My name is Eleanor. Eleanor, thank you for coming. You have 4 minutes. What do you want? I heard about the baby. How? My mother. She visited last week. Eleanor said nothing. Eleanor, I'm sorry for everything, the affair, the fraud, the things I said. You're not sorry, Marcus. You are caught. No, his voice broke. I'm sorry. I've had 6 months in here to think, to realize what I threw away. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I destroyed it. Eleanor's voice was tired. Why am I here, Marcus? Because I want you to know I did love you. 12 years ago in that coffee shop, I loved you. Before I knew about the money, before any of this. I loved the woman who laughed at my terrible jokes and stayed up late listening to my dreams. Her eyes watered despite herself. Then what happened? I got lost in the success, the image. I started believing I was Marcus Stone, the Titan. I forgot I was just Marcus, the broke architect who got lucky. You didn't get lucky. You got funded. I know. His voice dropped to a whisper. And I'm sorry I never saw you. Really saw you. I'm sorry I made you feel small. Invisible. He took a breath. The baby. I want you to know. I'm signing away all parental rights. I don't want visitation. I don't want my name on the birth certificate. That child deserves better than me as a father. Eleanor hadn't expected this. Of all the things she'd prepared for, this wasn't one of them. I'm also going to testify against Vanessa. She's being charged with conspiracy. She knew about the fraud, helped me hide it. I'm going to tell the truth about everything. Why? Marcus looked at her, really looked, maybe for the first time in years. Because you deserve justice, real justice. And because maybe in some small way, it'll make up for what I did to you. It won't, but it's all I have left. Time's up, the guard announced. Eleanor stood. Eleanor, one more thing. What? The name you choose for the baby. Make it yours. Mitchell, not Stone. They should have your name, your legacy. Eleanor's voice was soft. Goodbye, Marcus. She walked out without looking back. In the hallway, Diane waited. How are you feeling? Eleanor placed her hand on her stomach. Ready? Ready to move forward. 6 months later, Eleanor Mitchell Stone stood in the nursery of her new penthouse, 8 months pregnant, assembling a crib. The room was sage green and cream, gender neutral and peaceful. On the wall hung 2 photographs, her father Arthur Mitchell in the Forbes magazine cover, featuring her pregnant and powerful. The Silent Billionaire, How Eleanor Mitchell Built an Empire in Secret and Took It Back. The article had been fair, comprehensive, turning her into a folk hero. The woman who funded her husband's success, then destroyed him when he betrayed her. Diane arrived with decaf coffee. Board meeting in 20 minutes, and Patricia called. The Arthur Mitchell wing of Children's Hospital opens next month. My father would be proud. Catherine entered with groceries. I brought those gluten-free muffins you've been craving. Mom, you didn't have to drive from Boston. Yes, I did. I'm making up for 8 years. The doorbell rang. A delivery. Eleanor signed for the package, opened it. Forbes magazine, the physical copy. She read the opening aloud. For 12 years, Eleanor Mitchell Stone was invisible. The quiet wife, the supportive spouse, the woman in the background of every photo. But behind that silence was a $3.8 billion fortune and a mind sharp enough to build one of Manhattan's most successful real estate empires without anyone knowing. Diane grinned. Damn right. Catherine touched her daughter's face. Your father would be so proud. Eleanor hung the magazine cover on the nursery wall, next to her father's photo. The baby kicked hard. She laughed, hand on belly. You're impatient, little one, just like your grandfather. What will you tell them? Diane asked. About Marcus? Eleanor thought carefully. The truth, that their father was brilliant and charismatic and deeply flawed, that he taught me what I don't want to be, and that sometimes the people who hurt us the most also teach us our greatest lessons. Which is? Eleanor looked out at the Manhattan skyline, at the city she now commanded, at the empire she had built in secret and reclaimed in public. That the only person who can make you invisible is yourself. That silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And that the quietest person in the room is often the most powerful. Catherine raised her coffee cup. To powerful women, Diane joined her. To Mitchell Catherine Stone, who's going to grow up knowing her mother is extraordinary. Eleanor smiled. To new beginnings, and to never, ever making yourself small for someone else's ego. They clinked cups. Outside, Manhattan glittered in the afternoon sun. Stone Empire was now Mitchell Stone Group, combining her father's legacy with what she had built. The Hudson Yards project had been redesigned as mixed-income housing and green tech incubation. The company was profitable, ethical, making a difference. Marcus was serving 7 years in minimum security. Vanessa had taken a plea deal, 3 years probation, permanently banned from corporate positions. She was working as a waitress in Queens. her Instagram followers having long since moved on to the next scandal. Eleanor placed both hands on her belly, feeling the life growing inside. In 6 weeks, she would give birth. In 6 weeks, she would become a mother. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She had spent 12 years invisible, funding someone else's dream. Now she was building her own, a company that honored her father's values, a foundation that helped young people achieve their potential, a life lived in full color, not hidden in shadows. The baby kicked again, stronger this time. "I know," Eleanor whispered. "I know. You're ready to meet the world, and the world is ready to meet you." She looked at the photos on the wall. Her father, who taught her that true power doesn't announce itself. The magazine cover, proof that sometimes silence is strategy, and the empty space beside them, waiting for the first photo of her child. Mitchell Catherine Stone would grow up knowing exactly who she was. She would never have to hide her power or make herself small. She would know that her mother was brilliant, that her grandfather built an empire, and that strength comes in many forms. Eleanor smiled, hand on her belly, looking out at the skyline she owned. She was no longer the silent wife. She was no longer hiding in anyone's shadow. She was Eleanor Mitchell Stone, CEO, chairwoman, billionaire, soon to be mother. And she was finally, beautifully, powerfully herself. 3 weeks before Eleanor's due date, she received an unexpected visitor at her office. Patricia Vanderbilt arrived unannounced, carrying a leather portfolio and an expression that mixed concern with calculation. "Patricia?" Eleanor gestured to the chair across from her desk, her hand instinctively moving to her swollen belly. At 8 months pregnant, every movement required deliberate effort. "What brings you here?" Patricia settled into the chair with her characteristic elegance, crossing her legs and placing the portfolio on Eleanor's desk. "I have information you need to know about Vanessa Blake." Eleanor tensed, her body responding before her mind could process. "What about her?" "She's planning to write a book, a tell-all memoir." Patricia opened the portfolio, revealing printed pages. Her agent shopped it to publishers last week. The working title is "The Other Woman: My Truth About Marcus Stone and His Secret Billionaire Wife." Eleanor felt her blood pressure spike. Dr. Reynolds had warned her about stress. Can she legally do that? Unfortunately, yes. Legally, she can write whatever she wants as long as she's careful with the facts. Morally? Well, Patricia slid the pages across the desk. "I thought you should see the proposal before it goes to auction next month. I have connections at Simon & Schuster. One of my former assistants is an editor there now." Eleanor picked up the proposal with hands that trembled slightly. The opening paragraph made her stomach turn. "I was 26 years old when I met Marcus Stone. I thought I was meeting a self-made billionaire, a genius architect who had built an empire through sheer determination. I had no idea I was walking into a web of lies, manipulation, and a marriage so toxic it would nearly destroy me. I had no idea about Eleanor Mitchell Stone, the hidden heiress who controlled everything from the shadows. I had no idea I was being used as a pawn in their twisted game." "It's complete fiction," Eleanor said flatly, setting the pages down. "It's marketable fiction. And the timing right before your baby arrives? That's calculated." Patricia leaned forward, her voice dropping. "Vanessa paints herself as the victim. Young woman seduced by a powerful man, caught in the crossfire of a billionaire's revenge. She claims Marcus told her you were separated, that you had an arrangement, that the public relationship was your idea to generate publicity for the foundation." Eleanor's jaw clenched. "None of that is true. I know, you know, but the public loves a complicated story. Three-dimensional characters, shades of gray." Patricia's eyes were sharp. "Right now, you're the wronged wife who took righteous revenge. That's a good story. But if Vanessa gets her version out there first, she muddies the waters. Suddenly, you're not the hero. You're the cold, calculating billionaire who used your money to destroy two people who fell in love. They didn't fall in love. He cheated, and she helped him embezzle $8 million. Which brings me to the second thing you need to know." Patricia pulled out another document. "I know Vanessa's uncle, Richard Blake, the attorney who represented Marcus at the board meeting. He's deeply in debt. Gambling problem, over $300,000 owed to some very unpleasant people. I believe Vanessa is being pressured to write this book to pay off his debts. The advance being discussed is $500,000. Eleanor processed this information, her analytical mind cutting through her emotional response. So she's desperate. Desperate people are dangerous. They make reckless choices. Patricia sat back. Which is why I'm here. You have options. You could sue for defamation before the book is even published. Tie it up in courts for years. Vanessa would have to return the advance, couldn't pay her uncle's debts, and the whole thing falls apart. That would make me look vindictive, like I'm still punishing her. Exactly, which is why I suggest option 2. Patricia smiled. You write your own book, the real story, on your terms. You beat her at her own game. Eleanor laughed, sound tinged with exhaustion. Patricia, I'm about to have a baby. I don't have time to write a book. You don't write it yourself. You hire a ghostwriter, someone brilliant who can capture your voice. Patricia pulled out a third document, a short list of names. These are the best in the business. They've worked with everyone from Michelle Obama to Sheryl Sandberg. You sit for maybe 20 hours of interviews. They do the rest. The book could be done in 6 months. And say what exactly? The truth, the woman who built an empire in secret, the strategic genius who played the long game, the mother building a new legacy. Patricia's voice grew passionate. Eleanor, do you know how many women have reached out to me since your story broke? Hundreds. Women who made themselves small for men, women who hid their success, women who are just now learning to use their voices. They need your story, the real one, not Vanessa's fiction. Eleanor looked down at her belly, feeling the baby kick. Mitchell Catherine Stone, not even born yet, already caught in the wake of her parents' choices. I don't know if I want to relive all of that. The humiliation, the betrayal, it's finally starting to feel like the past. Then make it the past by controlling how it's remembered. Right now, you're letting other people write your history. Marcus wrote it for 12 years, telling everyone he was self-made. Vanessa's trying to write the next chapter, making you the villain. When do you get to write your own story? The question hung in the air. Eleanor thought about Mitchell growing up, searching her mother's name online, finding 100 different versions of the truth. Some sympathetic, some critical, some so distorted they bore no resemblance to reality. What story did Eleanor want her daughter to find? Give me a week to think about it, Eleanor said finally. Patricia stood, entering her documents. Take 2. But Eleanor, the world is fascinated by you. Forbes, Fortune, the Wall Street Journal, they all want interviews. You're turning them down. But if you don't tell your story, someone else will, and it might not be the truth. After Patricia left, Eleanor sat at her desk for a long time thinking. The baby kicked rhythmically, like a drummer keeping time. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see Mitchell Stone Group headquarters, the company name a compromise she'd negotiated carefully. Not just Mitchell, not just Stone. Both. The full history. She called Diane. Vanessa's writing a book. That manipulative, opportunistic... Diane's voice was fierce. Patricia suggested I write my own. The true story. Diane was quiet for a moment. Eleanor could hear papers rustling in the background. Her friend was probably at her office, working late as usual. Would you tell everything? Not everything, but the important parts. The truth about the money, the strategy, the years of silence. Why I made those choices. Eleanor paused. Maybe other women need to hear it. Women who are hiding their light. Women who think making themselves small will make them more lovable. That's very evolved of you, Eleanor smiled. I'm about to be a mother. I need to model evolution. How can I teach Mitchell to be powerful if I'm still hiding from my own story? So you're going to do it? I think I am, but first, I need to have this baby. 2 days later, Eleanor was in a meeting with the Hudson Yards contractors, reviewing the final plans for the affordable housing component, when she felt the first contraction. She was in the middle of explaining the importance of the community center design when her water broke, soaking through her dress and onto the expensive conference room chair. Oh, Eleanor said calmly, looking down. I think we need to reschedule this meeting. The contractors, all men in their 50s, panicked immediately. Should we call 911? Do you need to lie down? Don't move. I'll get help. Eleanor pulled out her phone with steady hands. Gentlemen, relax. First babies take hours. I'm calling my doctor and my mother. Someone please call my assistant and have her bring my hospital bag from my office. And could someone find me a towel? But Mitchell Catherine Stone had other plans. She was 3 weeks early and in a hurry to meet the world. By the time Eleanor reached Mount Sinai Medical Center, contractions were 3 minutes apart. Catherine and Diane met her in the emergency entrance, both looking more panicked than Eleanor felt. How are you so calm? Diane demanded as they wheeled Eleanor to labor and delivery. Because I spent 12 years planning every move in silence. This is just another plan. Eleanor breathed through a contraction. Except this one has a much better outcome. She was wrong about the much better part. The labor was brutal. Dr. Reynolds checked her progress at 6 p.m. You're only 4 centimeters. This is going to take a while. By midnight, Eleanor was only 6 centimeters. The contractions were coming hard and fast, each one feeling like her body was being torn apart. She gripped Catherine's hand on one side and Diane's on the other, breathing through the pain. I can't do this, Eleanor gasped during a particularly brutal contraction. I can't. Yes, you can, Catherine said firmly. You took down a corrupt CEO in a boardroom full of men. You can do this. That was easier, Eleanor panted. At 2 a.m., Dr. Reynolds' face grew concerned. The baby's heart rate is dropping. She's stuck in the birth canal. We need to do an emergency C-section. Eleanor nodded, too exhausted to argue. They wheeled her to the operating room, Catherine and Diane rushing alongside. Everything happened fast after that. The anesthesiologist administering the spinal block, the surgical drape blocking her view. Dr. Reynolds' calm voice explaining each step. You're going to feel some pressure, Dr. Reynolds said. Then Eleanor heard it, the most beautiful sound in the world. Her daughter crying with healthy, furious lungs. She's perfect, the doctor said, holding up a tiny, red-faced, screaming baby. Congratulations, Eleanor. You have a daughter. They placed Mitchell Catherine Stone on Eleanor's chest. The baby was warm and wet and absolutely perfect. She had auburn fuzz on her head, and when she opened her eyes, they were deep blue. Marcus's eyes. Eleanor felt her heart crack open in a way she'd never experienced. Hello, my darling, Eleanor whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm your mama, and I love you more than anything in this world. Catherine stood beside the operating table, crying openly. She's perfect. Eleanor, she's absolutely perfect. Diane, relegated to the doorway by hospital policy, shouted, What does she look like? She looks like herself, Eleanor said, unable to stop staring at her daughter. She looks like Mitchell. The surgery took another 30 minutes, but Eleanor barely noticed. She was lost in her daughter's face, memorizing every detail. The tiny nose, the perfect rosebud mouth, the way her miniature fingers curled around Eleanor's thumb. In recovery, as the nurses cleaned and weighed the baby, Eleanor felt the full weight of what she'd done. She'd brought a person into the world, a person who would have questions about her father, about the choices Eleanor had made, about everything. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, the nurse announced, 20 inches long, perfect APGAR scores. They brought Mitchell back, wrapped in a pink and white striped hospital blanket with a tiny knit cap on her head. Eleanor held her daughter and felt purpose crystallize. This baby would grow up knowing her worth. This baby would never hide her light. This baby would have the truth, age-appropriate and honest, about where she came from and who her parents were. Mitchell Catherine Stone, Eleanor said softly, you are named for 2 extraordinary people. Your grandfather, who taught me that true power doesn't need to announce itself, and your grandmother, who taught me that sometimes you have to walk away from the wrong thing to find the right one. The baby yawned, tiny and perfect. You're going to have a complicated origin story, Eleanor continued. Your father made terrible mistakes. Your mother made questionable choices. But you are not those mistakes. You are not those choices. You are entirely yourself. And I will spend every day of my life making sure you know that. Catherine and Diane were allowed in finally. They stood on either side of Eleanor's hospital bed, looking down at the newest member of their family. She has his eyes, Catherine observed gently. I know. And I'm glad. Eleanor's voice was firm. She should know where she comes from. All of it. The good and the complicated, she deserves the full truth. Over the next 3 days in the hospital, Eleanor learned the basics of motherhood. Breastfeeding was harder than she expected. The baby needed to eat every 2 hours. Eleanor's body hurt in ways she hadn't anticipated. But every time she looked at Mitchell's face, none of it mattered. On the fourth day, as Eleanor was packing to go home, a nurse knocked on the door. "Mrs. Stone, you have a visitor. A Judith Stone." Eleanor tensed. Marcus's mother. She hadn't spoken to Judith since the trial. "Should I tell her you're not available?" Catherine asked protectively. Eleanor looked down at Mitchell, sleeping peacefully in her arms. "No, let her in, but stay with me." Judith Stone entered the hospital room looking smaller than Eleanor remembered. She was 68 now, her hair more gray than brown, her face lined with worry and age. "Eleanor," Judith said quietly, "thank you for seeing me. I'm only seeing you because of her." Eleanor nodded to the baby. "What do you want, Judith?" "I wanted to meet my granddaughter and to apologize." "For what specifically?" "There's a lot to apologize for." Judith flinched but didn't look away. "For years of dismissing you, for calling you a mouse and thinking you were lucky to have caught my son. For not seeing that he was the lucky one. For believing his lies about you having a breakdown. For not being a better mother who raised a better man." Eleanor studied her former mother-in-law. Judith looked genuinely devastated, her eyes red from crying, her hands trembling slightly. "Marcus called me last week," Judith continued, "from prison. He told me everything. The money you invested, the empire you built, the affair, the fraud, everything." Her voice broke. "Eleanor, I raised him better than that. Or I thought I did. Somewhere I failed. Somewhere I raised a man who could look at someone who loved him and see only what he could take." Eleanor felt her anger softening. "You didn't fail, Judith. Marcus made his own choices. He's an adult. His decisions are his own. But I enabled him, always telling him he was special. He was destined for greatness. I made him believe the world owed him something." Judith took a step closer. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for a relationship. I'm asking if someday I could know her. Not as her father's mother, just as someone who loves her and wants to be in her life if you'll allow it." Eleanor looked at Mitchell, at this tiny person who deserved to know her full family history. "I'll think about it. But Judith, if you ever suggest that I was somehow responsible for Marcus's choices, if you ever make excuses for him or try to paint me as the villain to her, we're done. Do you understand?" "I understand. And Eleanor, you're going to be an extraordinary mother. I can already see that." After Judith left, Diane shook her head. "You're too forgiving." "No, I'm strategic." Eleanor adjusted Mitchell in her arms. "She deserves to know her family history, all of it. And if Judith can be part of that in a healthy way, why not? Mitchell didn't choose her father. She shouldn't be punished for his mistakes by being cut off from everyone connected to him." Catherine nodded slowly. "That's wise and generous." "No," Eleanor corrected. "It's honest. I'm building a life on truth now. That means Mitchell gets the truth about everything, including her grandmother who loves her despite her son's failures." The next morning, Eleanor brought her daughter home to the penthouse. The nursery was perfect, exactly as she'd designed it. Sage green walls with cream accents, a white crib with soft bedding, shelves lined with books Eleanor had been collecting for months. And on the walls, the photographs and quotes that would define Mitchell's childhood. A photo of Arthur Mitchell, Eleanor's father, distinguished and kind. The Forbes magazine cover featuring Eleanor, pregnant and powerful. And an elegant script, "Never make yourself small. Silence is strategy. The quietest person in the room is often the most powerful." That first night at home, Eleanor sat in the rocking chair at 2 a.m., nursing her daughter and looking out at the Manhattan skyline. Mitchell Stone Group headquarters glowed in the distance, a beacon of everything she had built and reclaimed. "Your grandfather used to say that true power doesn't need to announce itself," Eleanor whispered. "He was right. I spent 12 years being powerful in secret, building an empire nobody knew was mine. And you know what I learned?" Mitchell's tiny hand curled around Eleanor's finger. "I learned that silence can be strength, but so can truth. And knowing when to be silent and when to speak, that's wisdom." Eleanor's voice grew stronger. "You're going to grow up knowing exactly who you are, You're Mitchell Catherine Stone. Your grandfather built Mitchell Steel. Your mother built a stone empire. And you're going to build whatever you dream. But you'll never have to hide it. You'll never have to make yourself small for anyone. The baby's eyes drifted closed, milk-drunk and peaceful. Your father made terrible mistakes. He betrayed trust. He committed fraud. He hurt people. Eleanor's voice caught. But you are not his mistakes. You are your own person, perfect and new and full of possibility. And I will spend every single day making sure you know that. Outside, Manhattan glittered in the darkness, a city of millions of stories. Inside, Eleanor held her daughter and contemplated the future. Mitchell Stone Group was thriving. The Arthur Mitchell wing of Children's Hospital would open next month. And the book Patricia had suggested was beginning to take shape in Eleanor's mind, not as revenge or justification, but as truth. The truth about building power in silence. The truth about the cost of hiding. The truth about finding your voice. The truth about starting over. Eleanor rocked slowly, feeling the weight of her daughter, the weight of responsibility, the weight of love. This was what mattered. Not revenge, not vindication, not even justice, though that mattered too. This, her daughter, the future, the truth. We're going to be just fine, you and me, Eleanor whispered. Better than fine. We're going to be extraordinary, because I'm going to teach you everything I learned the hard way. And you're going to start from a place of power, not have to fight for it later. Mitchell sighed in her sleep, a sound of pure contentment. Eleanor smiled, kissed her daughter's forehead, and kept rocking. Outside, the city never slept. Inside, a mother and daughter began writing their own story, one that would belong to them alone. 18 months later, Eleanor stood backstage at the TED Women Conference in San Francisco, her heart pounding in a way that reminded her of the night she walked out of the gala. But this was different. This time she was choosing visibility. This time she was choosing her voice. Her daughter Mitchell, now an energetic 18-month-old with auburn curls and piercing blue eyes, played with alphabet blocks in the green room. Catherine sat on the floor beside her, building towers for Mitchell to knock down with gleeful abandon. Diane paced near the door, more nervous than Eleanor. You don't have to do this, Diane said for the third time. You've written the book. You've told your story. You don't owe anyone this. Eleanor adjusted the simple navy dress she'd chosen, checked her minimal jewelry in the mirror. She had practiced this speech 100 times. She had memorized every word, every pause, every moment of emphasis. But standing here, minutes away from walking onto that stage in front of 2,000 women, she felt the old familiar fear creeping in. What if they judge me? What if they think I was foolish for hiding my wealth? What if they blame me for Marcus's choices? What if they think I'm using my daughter for sympathy? Mama? Mitchell looked up from her blocks, somehow sensing her mother's distress with that uncanny toddler intuition. Eleanor knelt beside her daughter, ignoring the stage manager's warning look about wrinkling her dress. Hi, baby. Mama scared? Mitchell asked, her vocabulary expanding daily. Eleanor's heart swelled. Even at 18 months, her daughter could read her. Mama's a little nervous. I'm going to talk to a lot of people. Mama's strong, Mitchell said firmly, patting Eleanor's face with her tiny hand. Mama's strong like blocks. Eleanor laughed, tears pricking her eyes. Yes, baby. Mama's strong like blocks. She kissed Mitchell's forehead, stood, and faced Diane. I have to do this. Not for me. For her. For all the women who are still hiding. For everyone who thinks making themselves small will make them more lovable. 5 minutes, Ms. Stone, the stage manager announced. Catherine stood, brushing off her pants. You've got this, sweetheart. Your father would be so proud. I hope so. Eleanor took a deep breath. I'm about to tell 2,000 people that I hid billions of dollars from my husband for 12 years. That's not exactly conventional wisdom for healthy relationships. No, Diane agreed, but it's honest, and honesty is what people need. Eleanor walked to the stage entrance, hearing the introduction beginning. She could see the audience through the gap in the curtains. 2,000 women ranging from their 20s to their 70s, from every background imaginable. They had paid to be here. They had chosen to spend their Saturday listening to stories about women's experiences, women's power, women's voices. Ladies and gentlemen, the host's voice rang out. Please welcome Eleanor Mitchell Stone. Eleanor walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The audience stood immediately, a standing ovation before she'd even spoken a word. She reached the microphone, placed her hands on the podium to steady them, and waited for the applause to die down. This was it, the moment of truth. My name is Eleanor Mitchell Stone, she began, her voice clear and strong despite the fear. For 12 years, I was invisible, not because I was poor or powerless. I was invisible by choice. I hid a $3.8 billion fortune from my husband. I secretly funded his entire empire while the world celebrated him as a self-made man. And when he betrayed me publicly and spectacularly, I took it all back. She paused, letting that sink in. This is the story of how I learned that silence can be strategy, but it can also be a cage. And the moment I found my voice was the moment I truly found my power. For the next 18 minutes, Eleanor told her story, not the sanitized version from her memoir, which had spent 16 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list and been optioned by Netflix. The real version. The messy, complicated, painful version that kept her up at night wondering if she'd made all the wrong choices. She talked about meeting Marcus in that coffee shop when she was 22 and grieving. I had just lost my father. I had inherited a fortune that terrified me. And here was this passionate man with dreams bigger than his bank account. And he saw me. Not Eleanor Mitchell, the heiress, just Ellie, the girl with the book. And I fell in love with the way he saw me. She talked about the choice to create Titan Capital Holdings, to funnel billions into his company without him knowing. I told myself I was protecting the purity of our love. If he loved me for myself, not my money, then it would be real. But you know what? Love built on secrets isn't pure. It's fragile. It's a house built on sand, and the first wave that comes along washes it away. She talked about watching him change as success grew. He started believing his own mythology, the self-made titan, the genius who built an empire from nothing. And the more he believed it, the less he saw me. I became invisible in my own life, the quiet wife, the supportive spouse, the woman in the background of every photograph. Her voice grew stronger as she described the 6 months before the gala. I knew something was wrong when he hired Vanessa Blake. I felt it in my gut, but I didn't trust my instincts. I told myself I was being paranoid, jealous, insecure. Women are taught to doubt themselves, aren't we? To question our perceptions, to wonder if maybe we're just being crazy. She talked about the hotel receipts, the lipstick stains, the nights he came home smelling of perfume. And still I stayed silent. Why? Because speaking up would mean admitting I had been wrong. Wrong to hide the money. Wrong to build a life on secrets. Wrong to think I could control love by controlling information. Eleanor's voice dropped, became more intimate. I want to be very clear about something. I didn't cause his affair by hiding my money. He chose to betray me. Those are completely separate things. My choice to hide my wealth was about my fear and my strategy. His choice to cheat was about his character and his values. We have to stop conflating women's choices with men's bad behavior. I made questionable decisions about honesty in my marriage. He made immoral decisions about fidelity and fraud. Don't let anyone confuse the two. The audience murmured agreement. She described the gala. I sat in the front row of that ballroom in an $18,000 dress my husband had chosen, watching him kiss another woman in front of 600 people. And in that moment, something crystallized. I had spent 12 years making myself invisible to protect his ego, and he repaid that by erasing me entirely, by replacing me publicly with someone younger, flashier, more exciting. Eleanor's voice grew fierce. So I stood up. I didn't make a scene. I didn't throw anything or shout. I simply stood up, turned my back on him, and walked out. And for the first time in 12 years, I was visible. Not because of what he did to me, but because of what I chose to do for myself. I chose to leave. I chose to stop accepting the unacceptable. She talked about the board meeting, watching Marcus's face as he realized the truth. People ask me if I enjoyed that moment, if I felt powerful watching him fall apart. The truth, I felt sad, devastatingly sad, sad for the years wasted, sad for the man he could have been if he hadn't let success corrupt him. Sad for the partnership we could have built if he had seen me as an equal instead of an accessory. Eleanor paused, took a sip of water. The audience was completely silent. Here's where the story gets complicated, because 3 days after I took back my company, I found out I was pregnant. Gasps rippled through the audience. My daughter Mitchell is 18 months old now. She's backstage with my mother and my best friend, probably destroying a very expensive green room with her blocks. Eleanor smiled. She has her father's blue eyes. Every time I look at her, I see him. And you know what? I'm grateful for that. She let that sit for a moment, because she's taught me that we are not the sum of our parents' mistakes. We are not defined by the worst things our parents have done. She is not responsible for her father's fraud or her mother's complicated choices. She is Mitchell Catherine Stone, and she will define herself. Eleanor's voice grew passionate. I'm raising her to know exactly who she is from day one. She won't have to hide her power. She won't have to make herself small. She won't spend 12 years building an empire in secret and hoping someone will love her anyway. She will know from her first breath to her last that she is worthy of love exactly as she is, powerful and vulnerable, strong and scared, all of it. She gripped the podium. That's what I want every woman here to understand. You don't have to choose. You don't have to be either powerful or lovable. You don't have to hide your success to keep your relationship. You don't have to diminish yourself to make room for someone else. You deserve both. You deserve everything. Eleanor's voice softened. Now, I'm not saying don't be strategic. Silence can be powerful. Observing before acting, planning before moving. Those are strengths. My father taught me that true power doesn't need to announce itself. And he was right. She paused. But silence should come from strength, not fear. Silence should be a choice, not a requirement. And silence should never, ever require you to erase yourself. Eleanor looked out at the sea of faces. I spent 12 years silent because I was afraid. Afraid my money would poison love. Afraid my power would threaten his ego. Afraid that being fully myself would be too much. I was wrong about all of it. Her voice rang out clear and strong. My money didn't poison our love. His character did. My power didn't threaten him. His insecurity did. Being fully myself wasn't too much. It was exactly enough. It's always enough. She moved away from the podium, her final gesture one of openness. So here's what I want you to take away from my story. Know when to be silent. Know when to speak. Know that strategy and authenticity aren't opposites. And know that the quietest person in the room is often the most powerful. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is speak. Eleanor's voice dropped to almost a whisper, forcing the audience to lean in. Find your voice. Use your power. Stop making yourself small. You deserve to take up space in this world. You deserve to be seen and heard and valued exactly as you are. Not smaller, not quieter, not less, exactly as you are. She stepped back to the podium for her final words. My daughter is 18 months old. By the time she's old enough to understand this speech, I want her to live in a world where no woman feels like she has to hide her power to deserve love, where no woman thinks making herself small will make her more attractive, where no woman spends 12 years invisible because she's afraid of being too much. Eleanor's voice broke slightly. I can't change the past. I can't get back those 12 years, but I can make sure my daughter and yours and every woman who comes after us doesn't waste her power hiding in silence. She looked directly into the camera at the back of the room, knowing this would be viewed millions of times. Speak, be seen, take up space. You are worthy of all of it. Thank you. The audience exploded, 2,000 women on their feet, applauding, crying, shouting encouragement. Eleanor stood on that stage, fully visible, fully vulnerable, fully herself, and felt something she hadn't felt in 12 years. Complete, absolute peace. She walked off stage to continued applause. Backstage, Mitchell ran to her on wobbly toddler legs. Mama! Mama strong! Eleanor scooped her daughter into her arms, breathing in the baby shampoo smell of her hair. Yes, baby, Mama's strong, and someday you'll be strong too, even stronger than me. Diane was crying openly. That was incredible. You were incredible. Catherine hugged them both. Your father would have stood up and cheered. The rest of the day was a blur. Photo opportunities, media interviews, women approaching Eleanor in hallways and bathrooms, sharing their own stories of hiding, of making themselves small, of finally finding their voices. By the time Eleanor, Mitchell, Catherine, and Diane made it back to their hotel that evening, Eleanor was exhausted but exhilarated. Mama tired? Mitchell asked as Eleanor collapsed onto the hotel bed. Mama's very tired, but happy tired. Happy tired, good, Mitchell announced with toddler certainty. That night, after Mitchell was asleep in the adjoining room, Eleanor stood at the window looking out at San Francisco Bay. Her phone was full of messages. Interview requests from Good Morning America, The Today Show, NPR, speaking invitations from Harvard, Stanford, Fortune 500 companies. Women sharing their own stories of hiding their light, their success, their power. One message stood out from an unknown number. I watched your TED Talk. You were right about everything. I'm sorry for the man I became. I hope Mitchell grows up proud of the woman you are. Marcus. Eleanor read it 3 times. He had somehow gotten a message out from prison. Part of her wanted to respond. The part that had loved him for 12 years. The part that remembered the passionate architect in the coffee shop. The part that still mourned what they could have been. But she didn't. She deleted the message without responding. She didn't need his validation. She didn't need his apology. She had everything she needed right here. Her daughter sleeping peacefully in the next room. Her mother, reconciled after years of estrangement. Her best friend who had stood by her through everything. Her company, thriving under her leadership. Her voice, finally heard by millions. Eleanor looked at her reflection in the window, superimposed over the San Francisco skyline. She barely recognized herself. The quiet, invisible wife was gone. In her place stood a woman who had fought for herself, who had reclaimed her power, who had learned to speak. Tomorrow they would fly back to New York, back to her office, her responsibilities, the daily work of running a billion-dollar company while raising a toddler, back to real life. But tonight, Eleanor stood in this hotel room and allowed herself to feel proud. Proud of the speech, proud of the book, proud of the truth she had finally told, proud of the woman she had become. The woman her daughter would grow up seeing, not hidden in shadows, not making herself small, but standing tall and speaking clearly and taking up all the space she deserved. That was the legacy Eleanor wanted to leave. Not the billions, not the empire, but the truth that power and love aren't opposites, that you can be fully yourself and fully loved, that silence is sometimes strength, but so is speaking. Eleanor checked on Mitchell one more time before bed. Her daughter slept sprawled across the hotel crib, arms thrown wide, completely unself-conscious. That's how Eleanor wanted her to always be. Open, unafraid, taking up space. Sweet dreams, my darling, Eleanor whispered. Tomorrow we go home, and we keep building the life we deserve, the visible one, the honest one, the powerful one. She climbed into bed, exhausted but content, and slept better than she had in years. 2 months later, Eleanor stood at the opening of the Arthur Mitchell wing of Children's Hospital, holding Mitchell's hand as her daughter toddled beside her in a tiny navy dress that matched Eleanor's. The building was stunning, modern architecture meeting warm design, everything her father would have valued. Practical, beautiful, built to last. Thomas Garrett stood beside Eleanor, now fully retired but still her most trusted advisor. Your father would be incredibly proud. Eleanor looked at the dedication plaque. Arthur Mitchell, builder of empires, champion of children. Below it, smaller text. This wing funded by Eleanor Mitchell Stone and Mitchell Stone Group. I hope he would be, Eleanor said quietly. I took what he built and almost lost it through my own choices. No, Thomas's voice was firm. You took what he built and made it better. You took what Marcus tried to steal and transformed it into something meaningful. That's not loss. That's legacy. Patricia Vanderbilt approached with champagne. To the woman who proved that revenge is best served with perfect documentation and a board meeting. Eleanor laughed, clinking glasses. To truth, justice, and never making yourself small. They drank, then Eleanor knelt beside Mitchell. Do you know what this building is, baby? Hospital, Mitchell sounded out carefully, for sick kids. That's right. Your great-grandfather, my daddy, believed that every child deserves good health care. So we built this for them. Mitchell looked up at the building with wide eyes. We help kids? We help kids. Good, Mitchell announced. Kids need help. Eleanor's heart swelled. This was what mattered. Not the billions, not the revenge, not the vindication. Teaching her daughter that power means responsibility, that wealth means obligation, that you use what you have to help those who have less. That night, Eleanor stood in Mitchell's room, watching her daughter sleep. Nearly 2 years old, Mitchell was becoming her own person. Stubborn like Marcus, strategic like Eleanor, kind in a way that was entirely her own. Your grandfather built an empire, Eleanor whispered. Your mother rebuilt it. And you, my darling, you get to build anything you want. She thought about Marcus sometimes, still in prison with 3 years remaining. She wondered if he had really changed or if the apology had been manipulation. It didn't matter. He was her past, not her future. Eleanor walked to the window looking out at Manhattan. Her empire, her city, her life. She had been the architect of someone else's success for 12 years. Now she was the architect of her own destiny and her daughter's future. Mitchell stirred in her sleep. Mama? Eleanor went to her. Shh, baby, I'm here. Mama strong? Eleanor smiled, tucked the blanket around her daughter. Yes, baby, Mama's strong, and so are you. Love you, Mama. I love you too, Mitchell Catherine Stone. More than all the stars in the sky, more than all the buildings in Manhattan, more than anything in this whole world. Mitchell's eyes closed again, content. Eleanor stood, walked back to the window. The city glittered below, full of possibility. Somewhere out there, women were making themselves small. Women were hiding their power. Women were staying silent because they were afraid. But Eleanor's voice was reaching them. The TED Talk had 40 million views now. The book had been translated into 37 languages. Women were writing to her every day, sharing their stories, finding their own voices. That was legacy, not the money, not the buildings, but the truth that changed lives. Eleanor placed her hand on the window, feeling the cool glass. She had been quiet for 12 years. Now she would spend the rest of her life speaking. For herself, for her daughter, for every woman who needed permission to take up space. The quietest person in the room is often the most powerful. But sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is speak. Eleanor Mitchell Stone had finally found her voice, and she would never be silent again.